Welcome to the Wellbeing and Career World podcast. I'm delighted to be chatting with a gentleman born and raised in California. He's been studying and applying principles of entrepreneurship and investing since his early teens. Nathan is the owner and co-founder of several businesses and is always looking to push the boundaries of realistic in order to provide greater service to others. And today we'll be chatting about how to do what you love and make millions. A very welcome to the podcast. I've asked Nathan about this before we recorded, so making sure I don't make an idiot of myself. Mr. Nathan Gewondjan. Did I say it correctly? Or am I wrong?
You got it, yeah.
Cool, super duper. That's 5 stars for me. We'll move on, Nathan. Excellent. Okie dokie, Nathan. I gave you an introduction about who you are, what you are, and where you're from. So generally tell us a little bit. Oh, actually, before I start, where are you right now on planet Earth?
Yeah, so I'm actually living in Idaho.
Idaho. So give a geographical location or lesson to if you're talking to an idiot like myself. Where exactly is that? So if you paint that or point that in the United States of America, are we north, south, east, west, and make it in relation to points that people actually are aware of? So say New York, Los Angeles, where are we on the map in terms of Idaho?
Yeah, it's northwest. It's closer to the west coast than it is to the east, obviously. It's just below Canada. So it's close to the top of the United States. From Los Angeles, it's probably about a 20-hour drive.
Oof, that's not good.
Yeah, north. It's kind of a northeast drive, mostly north, pretty much close to straight up. So,
and to make everybody jealous, what temperature do you have at the moment? Are we getting into the nice summer temperatures now?
It's about 68 or so. So it's not super warm, but not freezing. So
well, that's pleasant. That's not,
yeah.
That's, you're not burning your skin just yet. That's not too bad. So I gave an introduction about yourself. So let us a little bit know more about your background.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually was born and raised in California. So, yeah, I was born over close to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I grew up in an entrepreneurial-minded family, and so I grew up around that. And my dad was a business owner. I was actually homeschooled, so
okay. What was that like?
Yeah, it was great. It was it definitely had its perks, but it also had its downsides. I definitely personally, I believe the perks outweigh the downside, or whatever you want to call that. It was great because I could more or less determine the things I was going to learn and what I felt like I really needed to learn. And that's not to say I didn't learn, your basic geometry, algebra, reading, writing. I learned all that. But as far as other things, I was able to kind of, specialize in certain areas of that time. And I can pick certain books that I wanted to read. Obviously, there were some requirements I had to comply with, but most of it was just in the interest of bettering the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So the stereotype of being homeschooled, like in my mind, right? So get this romantic picture out of my head. I mean, could you get out of bed anytime you wanted, or was it a set routine that you were homeschooled, let's say 9 o'clock every morning, Monday to Friday? Is that how it worked? So we had a schedule. I mean, I could have defied it, just like you can defy the schedule at school or whatnot, but you're going to get in trouble for it. Right. For at least during my high school years, I attended a religious class early in the morning.
Okay.
So I was up for that. It began about 6:40 a.m. and went, it was about 50 minutes. And then from there, I pretty much just, got up, got some breakfast, and did my schoolwork. So high school was a bit easier because I had that class in the morning that I actually physically got out of bed, drove there, and attended. But as far as growing up, it was a bit more lenient. I know my dad worked late, and my mom wanted us to be able to spend time with my dad. And so we would get to stay up a bit later, just so we wouldn't, never see us kids.
Right.
So, but as far as the schedule goes, we were pretty good with our scheduling.
And would a teacher homeschool you, or would it be a family member?
So for a while, it was actually my mother that did. And then after that, it was pretty much, here's a book. It has the lesson, read the lesson, learn the material. Let me know if you have any questions.
Wow. As it would you do all the exams like the SAT still and the high school test? Would you still follow that kind of curriculum or routine?
Yeah, so I did actually I took the SAT to get into, because I needed to get into, I was applying for a certain college and that was required for that. So I studied for that, took that. As far as like my high school diploma, I did do an online program for high school. So it was structured. It was, and there was specific things I needed to do to get that, to meet those requirements. But it was nice because I could set my own deadlines.
Right.
So I could just kind of do it at my own pace.
Were your friends or your pals, were they dead jealous? Were they like, God, I wish I could stay at home and be homeschooled? Or I mean, or did they feel kind of like over time that they seen you that, well, maybe it's actually be nice being in school every day? I mean, how did they feel? How did that balance work?
I think it depended on the friend I was talking to.
Right. Okay.
Some of them really, really enjoyed, the football aspect and all that, the homecoming, the proms. A lot of them enjoyed that. And, me, I didn't care too much for that. I definitely had social interaction through my church and, sporting leagues and through the city and things like that. So I did get to attend certain things like that. But there were definitely some friends that were just like, wow, you're super smart. You graduated, because I actually graduated a year early.
Wow.
But it was, I mean, it's different because, you're setting your own deadlines. You can kind of just make your own decisions. And it's not so much, okay, this is how it is. When you get to this point, and you're this age, this happens. And so it's just different. But it was just funny because some of them were, but others were definitely not. And they were glad to be, in the public school system.
Did you feel you missed out on anything? The reason I ask these questions, because obviously certain listeners might be thinking, or parents might be thinking, oh, I want to keep my child at home, homeschool them, or is it better? Did you feel yourself, did you miss anything looking back? I mean, would you wish you did something that maybe you could have doing in a public school or a school environment that you didn't do at home? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Looking back, there are a few things that I would say I feel like would have been nice,
right,
about the being in public school, but I personally don't feel that the upsides outweigh the downsides for me.
Okay.
I wouldn't go back. Like if I did go back, I wouldn't have sent myself to school, if that makes sense. Just because that's just me. That's kind of my preference. And
what about prom? Did you do the prom thing? Because we see on TV all the time. It's the prom is the thing to do when you finish high school. Did you do the prom?
I could have.
Oh, could have, but you didn't. Okay.
I could have. Yeah, I just kind of decided not to. It's kind of funny. I could have, but I just opted not to.
You're like myself. I didn't go to prom either. I think there was a football game on TV, and it was around the time when we did the prom, and I kind of went, I'm more into football. I'm gonna watch the football instead of go to prom, and I have no regrets. So we'll say nothing about that. Okay, so let's move on then. So we're talking today about the money side of things. How to do what you love and make millions. So when did you start having a passion for this? So to try and make millions and do what you love. Was it from a young age, or because your dad was in business, and is that where the passion came from?
I think the passion began. Well, first off, my parents are both very passionate individuals,
right?
Hence the reason why they homeschooled us kids. But I think it really began just with my passion for freedom.
Okay.
And it began with just intellectual freedom. So just for instance, me being able to choose what I was going to study or what I was going to focus on, even before college or the university level. That's where it kind of began. But it didn't really, I guess, take root completely until I was actually in my second year of college. I had begun attending a university, and there was a semester, my last semester actually, I was taking some courses. At the time, I was only taking online courses or virtual courses, actually due to the pandemic.
Right.
And I started thinking, like, I can, if I can learn all this stuff virtually, like, why can't I just teach myself certain things? Obviously there's certain things you need to learn from, on the college level, university level, certain certifications, you need that time in class with the professional. But certain skills and the skills that I wanted to acquire, I just kind of identified like, yeah, I don't really need that. I mean, if I'm determined enough and I'm passionate enough, I can go and I can learn it myself. And that's kind of when I identified the lifestyle I wanted to live, and determined that the actions I was taking weren't really in line with that.
Right.
And so it took me a little while, actually, because I had to change my way of thinking, my paradigm.
Okay.
Because prior to that, I had kind of lived by there's an old adage that says, give me liberty or give me death.
Right.
But it was funny because at the time, I basically lived by the adage of give me a college education or give me death.
Right. Okay.
and it was interesting because I really had to change my way of thinking. And after I changed that, I was able to change my plan of action. And that's kind of where we are today.
Nathan, it's kind of interesting. Your way of thinking, I mean, was there a light bulb moment or something that kind of sparked the change? I mean, did you think, okay, why am I doing this when I should be doing that? I mean, what was there a moment that kind of changed that thinking?
There actually was. It's funny. I was in my parents' living room, and I was watching an interview with Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
Author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and other financial education books. And he was just talking about how just the education system, at least in America, kind of just trains people to be a 9-to-5 employee.
Right.
And I kind of identified like, yeah, I don't know if that's really me. Okay. And I just sat there, kind of thought about it, and I was like, wait, but like, that's my whole life. Like, that's my way of thinking. That's everything I've been planning on. Like, how is that? How am I going to change this late in the game, And yeah, that was kind of the light bulb for me, just where I really questioned my reality.
So can I ask you then, and this is a bit off topic, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. I'll ask it in a certain way, like, in your opinion then, right? In case people got a bit crazy or nuts with this question or how it's answered. In your opinion, is going to college then, in your own opinion, a waste of money and time, considering the amount of investment that you make in going to college and the amount of money you have to pay back, and you may not get the return in the career? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Honestly, for some people, yes.
Right.
For some people, I don't think it is. I think it just all depends on where your mindset is at and what you're open to.
Right.
If you're open to being a little more diligent in learning it outside of class, then yeah, I think it's a waste of money. And if you're not going into, a medical position, or to be a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or something in that kind of where you need certain requirements, certain criteria, you need to meet that in order to be able to be compliant and effective in that position. But I think for some people it is a waste of money.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because this is all hearsay, obviously, but I was researching. I think doctors, I think they invest so much money. I don't know. It was like $250,000 or $300,000, I think it was. And instead of actually getting the return of investment that they've made into college to train to be a doctor, they find themselves having to leave a certain country because the country is not giving them the financial reward that the training they thought would provide. So they find themselves having to go to a different country to try and get that money back, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of interesting to see that, it's nice to say you can go to college and it's nice to say you can get an education, but if you're going to have, as I say, the rope around your neck in terms of paying back these loans and you're not getting the money back, like, I don't know. Obviously, that's up to people's decision and opinion. Not telling anybody don't do it, but it's interesting to get a different perspective. So let's jump right in here, Nathan. Is it easy to make millions?
That's kind of a loaded question. I think it depends.
So tell us, how easy is it to make millions?
Well, I think it really depends on your perspective. For some people it's easy. For some people it's like impossible.
Right.
Depends on how passionate you are. If you're trying to do it without hard work and without being goal oriented, no, I'd say it's not easy. But there's certain laws of the universe, and not to get super abstract or anything, but there's certain things that if you do, you'll get a certain result.
Right.
To name one, the law of transmutation, where it basically just says any thought you're thinking will begin to transform and transmute itself into the physical world. If you think about it long enough and mix emotion with it, it'll eventually materialize.
So that's
just one of them.
So your day, right? So say, for example, your typical day. So you talk about hard work and investing time, to make more money. For your typical day, say as an entrepreneur or a business person, are you talking about you have to exceed expectations in terms of, because we see a lot of this stuff on social media, and I'll be honest with you, personally speaking, I get tired of it, where you see the guys are like, oh, get a side hustle, or you're going to I make 10 grand a week and I'm doing on a computer marketing. I honestly, I don't know. I get so confused what they're talking about. But Are you talking about that? Is that the reality of making more money or making millions, what these individuals are saying? Or as you said just there, you have to put the work in?
I believe it needs to be more of a personal growth endeavor. Right. If you're in it for the money, it's not going to last. We hear about people, they win the lottery and then they go broke. Or you hear about these athletes, they make millions of dollars during their career and then they just lose it all. They're broke. It's in many cases, it's just the mindset. The premise of my book is that it's not necessarily what you're doing, but how you're doing it.
Right.
And so, there's obviously different things you can do that put you in more of an environment that's conducive to, to higher income, to raising the amount in your bank account. But if you can never see yourself and feel those emotions now that you will feel when you're in a position of wealth or authority, it'll never happen. And so a lot of what I do is building my mind and my own personal development, whether that's through books or through podcasts, through meditation. A lot of that begins there. And as you grow your mind, it'll begin to move into the physical world around you.
Do you think, Nathan, so it's very interesting now listening to you there. Can, say, a person of high education, say, for example, a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot, or just to name a few, can they make as much money as someone who may not have the same qualification if they put their mind to it?
Yeah, without a doubt. Our biggest limitation is, people say the biggest limitation is the one you put on yourself. And I know that's cliche, but it's true. And it's interesting because in many countries, the highest paid individuals are the ones that pay the highest taxes.
Yes.
As well. And so there's a way, if you do certain things, if you follow certain tax codes be given by the government, you can make, maybe you're making less, but you're keeping more. So you're making essentially just as much as a doctor or a pilot or a nurse or, whatever profession.
So could the trick be that if you make a certain amount of money, because you obviously go to the higher level. So say, for example, you start with 20% tax up to a certain earning, and then you go to 40% tax. Is the trick is to stay below that level, or should you try and aim as high as possible to get into the next range of 40% tax to earn more? Or are you really earning more? I mean, you're working harder, but do you earn more? I mean, what would be your opinion on that?
My opinion is that tax codes that are given are incentives.
Okay.
And the government is incentivizing its citizens to do certain things that they necessarily either don't have enough money to do or just don't want to do because they're just not quite as good at it as normal people.
Right.
And so that's kind of my opinion there. I'm not an accountant or anything, so all the technical things I'm not terribly keen on. I have different people in my my circle that kind of specialize in that, but I do know that there are certain things that we can do to not just make more, but keep more.
Keep more.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there is any skeptics listening, skeptics out there, so how can you convince them then to do what they love and make money or make millions? Have you got a step-by-step plan, or how does it all start?
Yeah.
The famous question.
Yeah, no, totally. I have two things that I'd say. The first is, if you're a skeptic listening, identify your passion. That's the first thing. That's what I did. I kind of identified, okay, what's the lifestyle I want to live, and which vehicle do I want to ride that's going to get me there? So identify your passion, and then figure out a definite chief aim or goal. Napoleon Hill talks about that in his book, Think and Grow Rich. It's essential. If you don't have if your desire isn't hot as, the red, the white heat, the fire, the blue flame, whatever you want to call it, if it's not hot enough, if it's not big enough, it's not going to happen. And so a lot of times, there are hard days. But if you're a skeptic, I'd just say, just try it. I'm, like I said, I'm a religious person. There's an adage or a verse that just says, if any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine. And so basically, if you want to know something, you got to try it. And if you don't, you won't know until you try it. And so, what harm would it do to just discover your passion, learn what you love, and, start thinking of different angles, different ways to do it and become profitable with it.
Do you think, Nate, maybe in your own opinions, do you think that you mentioned there that you had that, like, the light bulb moment? Do you think we're programmed now, possibly in society, that when we see the media on the TV and it's promoting, say, college places, it's promoting certain companies or certain brands, that we just become so fixated on that we forget to have that reality, like the light bulb moment that you experienced? I mean, is everything just set up at the moment that it's just kind of like, it's just more of an easier flow to say, look, okay, you go to high school, then we go to college. After college, then we get a job. After we get a job, we get married, possibly we have kids. It's all to be pre-programmed in our minds that that's the process we have to take. So how then, if somebody's listening to this, then can they get out of that pre-program, take a little risk? Or is it risky, what we're talking about here? I mean, is there a risk involved?
There's definitely a risk involved.
Right.
Yeah, I think it just, the key here, and I learned this actually from Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's pretty big into neuroscience and how our thoughts actually change our biology.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, they've done studies on it and everything, but one of the things he teaches is that in order to change our life or to move forward, or to get off of this, that conveyor belt sort of thing, like what you were, kind of alluding to with, the news or the media or whatever it is. One of the biggest things we got to do is just to become conscious of our unconscious thoughts. And what I mean by that is, when we're in the shower, for example, something we do frequently, hopefully, but a lot of times when we're doing things we usually do, maybe driving in the shower, like we kind of just, time kind of disappears.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we get lost in thought. We aren't consciously thinking of, okay, like, I'm turning the car here, or okay, I'm, washing my hair, or like whatever it is. We just kind of go unconscious. And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it just takes an effort, a conscious effort to become conscious of those thoughts and be able to kind of just control those, so we can kind of just control our own environment, our own life, our own reality.
So what then if somebody was to buy your purchase your book, Open Mind Education, so it has good reviews on Amazon, and what can they expect from it? So from the beginning to the end, is it a journey that you're bringing them through? Is it your journey, or is it tips and hints of how they can successfully do something they love and make a bit of money?
So it's really to give them perspective. I kind of go through my story. I share bits and pieces here and there in various chapters. We actually just begin the book with a brief history of why and how we got to where we are in the education system. At least, we focus on kind of the United States education system, at least for the history part in chapter 1.
Yeah.
But the principles are, universal. They're across the board. And so just to give a little bit of background, we kind of go through the history starting off. And then after that, we kind of take you through, we start with the mindset, because that's obviously the first part. If you have the money, but you don't know what to do with it, then it doesn't really matter if you have the money or not. So we start with the mindset and help our readers understand that you have to think like a wealthy individual to become a wealthy individual.
Right.
And after that, we go into a little more of the technical knowledge of, okay, you have real estate, you've got stocks, you've got whatever, like, you just kind of got to figure out what's right for you based on the life you want to live and where you want to end up. So we're going to go through there, and then we go through some other things, like, mentorship or networking, or, just winning the battle between your ears and things like that, just about controlling your thoughts. And so a lot of it is a collection of tips and tricks to be able to get to that level and live the life that you do really want to live.
And is the book, has it been designed or created on your own experiences, or have you researched it from different angles or different possibilities as well?
It is primarily from my personal experience, but I mean, I have studied, since my early teens, just the lives of successful people and just how they got there, what they did, how they thought, how they acted, and just kind of taken a lot of their wisdom and their knowledge and kind of compiled it into one book. And so kind of mixed that with my personal experiences and learnings, and that's kind of how we got the open-minded education.
And listeners, your book is available. Is it mainly on Amazon, or can you purchase it at other stores, or is it mainly online?
Yeah, so it is on Amazon. There's the Kindle and paperback available. So if you do want to get it digitally or instantly, there is that option. At the present, we are working on getting it in stores. And so that's kind of where we're at on our publishing journey here. We self-published it. We didn't go through any specific publisher, just so we could maintain the freedom behind when we want to print it, where we want to print it, and things like that. Yeah,
no, sure. Totally get that. I mean, very nosy. I'm Nathan at the moment. I'm on your website, openmindededucation.com, and it has a review of the book or an explanation. You have other blog posts, which is how to hedge against inflation, 5 ways to build wealth without a degree, 4 ways to control your thoughts. So how to find the perfect mentor. So you have some really excellent information. So start me off then. How if an individual or a corporation wants to get in touch with you, how does the system all work, and what services do you provide?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a contact on the website if you'd like to get in touch with us that way. That's probably the best way, just sending us a quick email through there. As far as services we provide, I know my brother and I, we're the ones, so we co-authored the book together, and we're currently working on online courses for our readers to get a bit more of the technical side of things, how to build a credit score, how to truly set goals and discover your passion, and how to budget in order to invest, for normal individuals that aren't high earning individuals, to get to that level of where you are making millions. And so that's probably the best way, is just on the website through the email. There is a group on Facebook, the Open-Minded Education Community. So if you go on Facebook, just search that, it'll come up. But otherwise, look forward to hearing from them. And
people get in touch. I mean, I'm going to be really cheeky here, but look at your photograph of you and your brother on your website. And Joshua is your brother, is that correct?
Yes.
So you look super young. This is no disrespect. And yes. I have a lot of admiration for you both. I'm not going to ask your age, because there was a host a few weeks ago on Irish TV, and he asked somebody their age, and the response he got, I was kind of surprised about, because it came across as if the person wasn't too happy being asked their age. So I'm not going to ask you your age, just in case I get a similar response. But that being said, you both look very young, but super impressed, and how you've put this book together, how you have the website, and how you're proceeding with this career and providing information to others around the world. So you deserve a big pat on the back for that one. When you look at somebody like, and I'm going to mention this because I have great admiration in Elon Musk, for example.
Right.
Would he be somebody that you would look up to in terms of what he has done, what he is doing, and he's kind of, I think it was his PayPal, and then he sold PayPal, and then he invested in I think it's a boring company, SpaceX, and so on. Would he be somebody that you would want to be like? Is that what we're looking at here? Because talking to you now, that's my impression. I don't know you, but I'm getting that picture in my head that you have that potential. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, and Elon definitely has qualities that I strive to emulate. There's certain things about him that I definitely admire. I don't know him personally, obviously, but
we'd love to know him personally, wouldn't we?
Yes, no, definitely.
Give us a call, Elon. Give Nathan a call.
Exactly. Yeah, please do. I'll leave my number in there.
No, but what he does, it's talking to you now. As I said, seeing your picture, you and your brother, Joshua, it has. I'm only seeing a little sample or talking to you of who you are, but I get the impression from you that you have this drive, you have motivation inside you, that you obviously have something maybe in your mind, and I'd love to interview you again in a few years' time, because I just have this picture that you're going to go higher and higher, and it'd be just so interesting to see the next level you've made in a few years' time. Now, don't get me wrong, Nathan, you've probably made billions by then. And you're probably like, I'm not going to talk to this guy. Would you go off out of that? I'm going to talk to CNN or NBC or whoever it is, Jay Leno, or no, he's not around anymore. Jimmy Kimmel or stuff like that. So you're probably going to be like, but is this the picture I'm getting? Is my perception correct or similar to what you're aspiring to be?
I'm just going to say this, we stand on the shoulders of giants. It's not, wherever we end up, obviously, we have certain goals that, I have certain goals that I'm aiming towards. And it's quite possible. It's quite possible. As in terms of, where I'll end up, I kind of live by, I guess, the concept of cybernetics. Okay. I don't know if you're super familiar with that, but cybernetics just comes from a Greek word that basically just means to steer. And so anytime, you have a ship that goes off course, it course corrects.
Yeah.
You have the plane that goes off course, it course corrects. And, we use it when we walk, we're walking down the street, we don't walk in a perfectly straight line, we kind of go to the side and then we get back to the direction we're heading. And so that's kind of how I live. We all, we fail and we mess up, but, it's just a matter of getting back up and getting back on course towards that goal. And so, whether that's me and in however many X amount of years, then, awesome. But I know that it's, where I have my goals or where I'll be ending up. So, I'd love to, again, chat with you in a few years and talk about the progress and see where, how far you've come and where I'm at. So.
Oh, don't worry about me. I'll be still doing the podcast. You'll be away. You'll be far away. But tell me this. I mean, what's in your mind at this moment in time? What do you see as? I mean, I keep going back to Elon generally, but I mean, he obviously had this vision. I mean, what is it? Do you have a vision? I mean, does Joshua, your brother, have a vision? I mean, what do you see the future in terms of space? What do you see the future in terms of transport, in medical healthcare? Is this part of your vision, or is it specifically, do what you enjoy and make money? Or do you see yourself pushing the boundaries?
We definitely see ourselves pushing the boundaries. We hope and work and have a vision for the day when, hospitals aren't necessarily run by administrators, but run by people that, truly, don't run it as a business, but as a care facility, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
There's certain things, I'm not too keen on the whole transportation, and eventually, our ideas will change that. But it's our vision is to revolutionize the mindset of the people behind the word education.
Right.
To build one's mind, not fill it with facts.
Right. Oh, okay. That's an interesting statement. No, that's I totally get that. And do you? I mean, Joshua. I mean, we don't have Joshua here to answer for himself. What's his? Is he a younger brother? Is he younger? Yes. So yes, what's his outlook then again? I mean, was he similarly homeschooled, and what's his inspiration and motivation as well? Other than the book, if we move aside from the book and open-minded education, but would he be similar, like, of having the likes of Elon and all these people pushing the boundaries at the moment? Would that inspire him?
Very much so. Yes. Yeah, he's definitely, we kind of have the same vision, same motive. It's kind of interesting. We do have very similar upbringing. Obviously, we have the same parents, different experiences in many things, many cases. But his motivation, his vision is very, very much paralleled with mine.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to ask you something else now. So what about, say there's somebody listening to this right now, and I kind of ask this question a lot, but we're in a stage of the world where it's probably quite negative, depending what part of the world that you're in. And people are probably struggling with either money, because all you hear about is, about wars, you hear about recession, you hear about inflation, you hear about a lot of negativity. What would you say to somebody now to try and motivate them, to drive them? Pretty much similar to what you're doing yourself. What would you say to them if they're kind of very feeling low, they're on the floor, so to speak, and they're kind of like, I can't do this anymore, I can't do this job anymore, but I got to pay the bills? And what suggestion or advice have you got for them?
Well, I'd start off with asking him a question. I'd ask him, what do you want? Simple question. What do you want? What's your ideal world look like for you? And from there, my response will be very much personalized based on what they want and how they see themselves living. And then after that, I might go into some general response of, don't let your environment control you.
Right.
It was interesting. I was listening to Jim Rohn He's a entrepreneur, public speaker, motivational author, and such. But he said, and during the Depression, things weren't too expensive, or with inflation, things aren't too expensive. The problem is you just can't afford them.
Yes.
Like it's just a change of mindset, and in some ways it's a hard pill to swallow, because in some cases, like, yeah, it's too expensive, but in some cases, like, well, I mean, you can't, unless you're going to do something about it. It doesn't do any good really dwelling on it or thinking about it. And so if you're not going to take action to change it, you might as well take action and change your mindset so that you are actually enjoying life instead of just enduring going through it.
Do you think, Nathan, in your own opinion, again, just in case I get an email to say, how dare you ask that question, do you think that, in your own opinion, we've become kind of spoiled a little bit in terms of what we see, what other people have, especially on social media, where my neighbor has a nice car, and then we fall into that rut of, why can't I have that? And how come they have this and I'm working hard? And does it still go back then to the mindset again that, if you want something, you got to go and get it?
Yes. So short answer is yes. It's interesting. I see different things, and hear different things, social media, all that jazz.
Yeah. All that jazz.
Yeah. But it's interesting because you have, the people that really don't have a whole lot of money, you can kind of tell, because they'll go out and they'll dress in super crazy nice clothes. They'll buy, whatever, Gucci belt or whatever they got, they'll dress with all this stuff. And then, some of the wealthiest people will go out in sweatpants and flip-flops.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah. You see that a lot, especially on flights. You see in business class and first class, they're walking on under t-shirts and flip-flops.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that takes a lot of, I guess, just a lot of mental maturity.
Yes.
To not get caught up in, the material world.
Yes.
I guess it just goes back to, if money is your primary motivation, it's going to be a long, long road. And it's going to be, it's not going to be nearly as meaningful. You have people that are wealthy and people that are rich. Rich people end up, with a lot of money, but, maybe they are terrible with relationships, or terrible with, their family. They spent way too much time on their business and didn't give their family enough time. Or, you have people that are wealthy who truly, focus on the different aspects of their life and are able to kind of boost them all simultaneously, if that makes sense.
No, totally does. We have a statement here, or a saying. It's kind of a bit, not to say rude, but crude. I'm going to kind of modify it a little bit. The statement that we use is fur coat and no underwear. Does that make sense? So it's a bit more of a nicer way of saying it, but generally what it is that you see people that have the nice gear, the nice clothes, but underneath it all, they have nothing. Yeah, and it's a strange. It's like keeping up the Joneses, I think they used to say years ago. Probably well before your time, Nathan. I'm an old man now, but anyway, well before your time. So what then? So if somebody was getting in touch with you, so they can get in touch with you now on your website. And are you doing all the typical social media, like your TikToks? Are you dancing on TikTok and stuff like that with your book in hand, or is it?
I haven't done any dancing on TikTok yet.
No,
I've been contemplating that one.
Yeah, get Joshua to do it. Yeah, he'll do it. Have him as a dancer.
Maybe I'll have him head that up.
There's a rumor going around he's a great dancer. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, or an organization wants to get in touch with you, generally the website is the place to go, is it?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
Great. So anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. It's opened my mind, I have to say. I'll put the links in for Nathan's website and for the book as well, which you can purchase on Amazon. It has great reviews, and I'm 100% sure, talking to you now, that you're going to do even amazing things, and hopefully you'll take the time out in years to come that you'll come back and have a chat with me, and we'll find out what's going on with yourself and Joshua. But if, I mean, here's a question before we go. If Elon Musk was to call you tomorrow, would you work for him?
I wouldn't work for him, no.
You wouldn't? Okay, can I ask why?
Because I don't see myself as an employee. My goal is, to stay as a business owner, entrepreneur, history maker. I definitely would have lunch with him. I'd love to learn some things from him.
Yes.
But I would never work for him, no.
That's amazing. No, I mean, that's because I probably turn around, maybe because of the, do you know when you have admiration for a lot of like sports stars or movie stars? I mean, I love Tom Cruise. I'm a big aviation fan. Yeah. And he inspired me into aviation. And obviously there's a new Top Gun movie coming out next week. Yeah. And if he said to me tomorrow, Dave, come and work with me as my PA, I go, okay. because I've seen him through at a young age in Top Gun and in other movies, but Top Gun specifically. And now with this movie coming out now, I'm so excited. So it's kind of interesting that I would just go, okay, yes, Tom, I'll be your PA. But Elon Musk would come in and say to you, would you work for me on SpaceX or something else, or the Starship program, or you would say no, you want to stay true to yourself and be your own boss.
Yeah, I mean, business partner, I consider it.
Wow. Yeah. Elon, if you're ever listening to this by accident, you're more than welcome. Nathan, his brother Joshua, will go into partnership with you. It's fascinating that it's great listening to you, because you're very determined and you're focused on what you want. But generally, that's all for me to say. It's just thanks so much to I'm going to pronounce this correctly again, I hope so. Nathan Gewondjan. Got it. Super duper extraordinary entrepreneur. I'm gonna tell him that anyway. And I'll hopefully chat with Nathan again in the years to come, and we can review what he's been doing, and you'll probably see him probably in the media before he goes back on anyway. But well done, Nathan, and thanks so much for chatting with me on the Wellbeing and Career World podcast today.
Well, thanks so much, David, for having me. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure.